Hi, welcome to this video walkthrough setting up your Elvanto account to connect with your Growing Healthier Churches account. Thanks so much for signing up for Growing Healthier Churches. We hope that it helps your ministry leadership team to focus on the health and growth of your church. We also hope that it helps you be better users of Elvanto. Now, as I go through this video walkthrough, I'm not going to assume that you're an expert at Elvanto, so I'll be walking through things slowly. If I'm too slow, skip ahead through the chapters in the description of the YouTube video, but let's get things underway. I'm emulating kind of a sign up. So you might be at this point now where you've been put into my GHC. You're probably gone straight to the Elvanto setup section, but if you tried to go to the dashboard area, it would say that your setup is incomplete and take you to the page that you are probably in at the moment, which says, yes, you've registered, but your setup is incomplete. So we're going to click on these instructions here. And I'm not going to skip over this. It's worth actually noting that we've got 5 assumptions in play, and I'd like you to sort of have a look at each one of them. The first one is that we assume that you're recording people's details in Elvanto. That's a reasonably basic assumption. People are assigning a people category related to their connectedness to your church. So you've got newcomers and members. I'll talk about that in a moment. People are added to groups in a category for small group ministry. And so if you're not using categories yet for small groups, that is kind of a way to bring groups together that are small groups. Now would be a good time to do that. That's easy enough. People are designated in serving positions as volunteers. And finally, congregations are designated by distinct locations. Now, some people are using service types to differentiate congregations. To use GHC well, I mean, you could still use it, but to use it well and to use filtering, we use locations as the way to differentiate congregations. So those locations can be across sites. They can be for congregations on the same site, and that's how we use it. And that's not too hard to swap across to using that. If you are not doing that, you can use the Growing Healthier Churches Facebook user group or reach out to us by support to find out how to do that. People have already done that. So let's get started. First of all, we are going to set up our people categories. And so the way that GHC recognizes which people categories are member categories, that is, these are the categories that have people in them that call your church home. GHC needs to be able to differentiate these categories as opposed to anyone else, really. Anyone else who's been added to your system in the last 12 months is considered a newcomer by GHC. And the flow is basically to try and help you move those that are not yet members or in membership categories, that is, newcomers, into your church, that is, to become a member. It's really that simple. And so what we're going to do is we're going to jump across into my admin side of Elvanto. And you can see here that when we go to people and down to categories, you can see here that I've got several categories already in our system. Now, some of these have stars. I've already gone through this system, and any category that has a star is completely ignored by Growing Healthier Churches. So, for instance, we might have parents of youth that by and large we don't want to bias the statistics. We've made the system flexible, so whatever you want to do, you can do, but that's one way to remove people completely from the analytics. But we want in our system, we consider in our church that both core and crowd are ways of describing people who call our church home. Now, core for us is a further differentiation. They're people who we have a higher expectation of. They're in small groups, they're serving, they're attending regularly. But there are people who call our church home who aren't doing those things, and we'd like them to. And so we've got sort of like that further pathway. And GHC will at times differentiate these two categories out if you've got multiple categories that are designated as membership categories. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add an underscore there for core. I could also have changed this to a 1. Any highlight color ending in a 1 is also marked as a membership category in GHC. I'm going to do the same for crowd. Fantastic. All right, so that's that done. Now, if we go back to our setup instructions, we're just going to say, yep, moving along to small groups. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing now for small group categories. And this is the way that Growing Healthier Churches knows whether people are in your small group or discipleship group or whatever you call them, Bible studies. Categories are a way of grouping together groups in Elvanto. And for the same reason, we're going to add a suffix at the end. So we jump back into Elvanto, going to go to groups, down to group categories. We already have a bunch of categories in our system, but small groups is the one that we're going to add a suffix to there. Great. Okay, so now we're moving along. Now this one's a little bit more complicated. Now this step here is the way that GHC is able to pick up on attendance records, both for services and for small groups. If you don't do attendance recording for services, you can either skip over this step and you'll get a spanner in your setup instructions, but that's okay because you're not using this, or you could actually set it up and you'll get 0 results, but it might actually help you think about perhaps using this part of Elvanto. If you're a church of less than a couple hundred people, it's quite feasible to be able to do attendance reporting, and the metrics that you get out of it are quite incredible, and so it might be worth doing that. But let's work through this. So for instance, I am going to try and split my screen here. So let's move you to here. And so we're going to go into reports. Right. And we're going to add a comprehensive report. All right, now it doesn't matter what we call that comprehensive report. I'm going to call it GHC attendance report. Oh, look, I've been here before. Very good. We'll make sure we call that service report and hit save. And then we're going to add report item. Just stretch it out. There we go. Add report item. Now we can see here over here, we're looking for the service individual attendance report. That's a built-in one. So I can just type it in here actually. Service individual attendance built in. Great. And here's a here are the basic settings for Elvanto's built-in service attendance report, and we're basically going to copy exactly what's in here. And so if we shrink this, I'm going to try and make this look the same as that. So date range is going to be in the last 12 months, and frequency each service. Yep. Those we're going to filter services and people by the congregations that I have in play. Right. Going to hide the time. And we're going to member ID. It's important that we have all of those. Even if you don't use preferred names, it's important that you click that. It's a way that we capture or where we set up this system for everyone to use, whether you're using preferred names or not. And the last one is people categories. And we're going to go add to report. Now, if I just scroll out a bit, great. And so I'm going to hit generate report right now. That's going to load up the service attendance for my church over the last 12 months. Sometimes that can take a while to load. Now, this is the way that GHC is able to access this. We're going to hit share. And anyone with the link, I'm just going to grab this and copy that link out to a note file that we'll use very soon. And this is a link that anybody could use and access, but it's a secure link in that is a completely unguessable link, and GHC safely stores that away inside your account. So let's head back to our setup instructions. And what we're going to do next is create a group. It's kind of a fake group in Elvanto that's called this Report of Service Individual Attendance. And we're going to paste the link to that shared link into the address. And GHC is able to look up this group and access the link through this method. It's a little bit non-standard perhaps, but it's a way that we found to connect GHC with some of the details of your Elvanto account. So let's go and set up this account, that group. So we're going to head back into our main screen, reports. Oh, sorry, not reports. We're going to groups. Groups. We're going to add a group, and it was to be called. The reason I'm going to copy this, that's the reason why I dumped the link to the report into a side document, so I didn't lose that. Report of service attendance. This is where now I copy across into the address here and hit save. Great. Okay, so moving along, we're going to do the same kind of process for group attendance. And if you're not using group attendance, this is a good time to start doing it. Any church, whether it's a big church or a smaller church, is able to set up automated emails or text messages to leaders of groups. And when they get that, they can click a link. They don't have to even log in. They can click a link and say, these people attended. Click through a bunch of checkboxes, maybe even run a note to say new person joined this week, or another note that staff or a small group coordinator would pick up. And we've found that's been quite easy to roll out, and we have 100% of groups recording data, and that data is really important. At the moment, as I'm recording this, we're in lockdown in Sydney, and our Sundays are disrupted, as in we can't meet on Sundays. So this kind of information has been really important to keep a view on people's connectedness and pastoral care. So we're going to create a comprehensive report just like last time. So we're going to go back into here, reports, add comprehensive report. We're going to call this GHC attendance group report. And again, you can call that whatever you want. That's not important. And we're going to add report item. Now, with this time, we're looking for the group individual attendance. So that's another group individual attendance. And this time, the date range is actually going to be this calendar year. This calendar year. We assume that small groups change over the year break. And so it's good to have this as this calendar year rather than the last 12 months. Okay, so all groups are active. That's sometimes one that's overlooked, and you end up bringing up a bunch of groups that are not active. And we're going to copy what this screen looks like. Okay, so active all groups. All groups, that's the category we want. We're going to add to report, and just jumping in and out of sort of the mobile view and the web view as I drag that width across. Generate report. All right, so here's our report. And now we're going to do that same step before where we share it. Anyway, with our link, I'm going to copy this into another note file here on my side. And then we're going to add another group, and that group's going to be called this, and that's the way GHC is going to be able to access this report. So let's head back, go to groups, add group, calling it this. We're copying this. Oh, the address. Right, hit save. Fantastic. All right. Now we're up to the final step on the Elvanto side, and that is to access your API key. Now the API is the way that it's called Application Programming Interface, and it's a way that different programs can talk to one another, and GHC will talk to Elvanto through this connection. We've supplemented the connection with the reports that you've just done to access deeper information. And just a reminder that we don't change anything on Elvanto's side, and we don't store anything on our side. We just, when you open up the dashboards, that's a talking moment between basically Elvanto sending information to GHC to analyze and to display to you as real-time metrics. So you need to be a super admin user to do this step. And so you're going to go to settings, and then right down the bottom is your API. And I'm not going to show you our API, but that's the API that you would click show and copy. And we're going to use that in the next step. The reason why I'm not going to show you the API key, and I encourage you not to show people your API key, is once people have that key, then you can access one's database. And this is one of the reasons why it's a good idea not to have multiple people on your staff team sign up for GHC. Just have one person. Usually it's a good practice to only have one super administrator on your database anyway. And then that one person in GHC can share the reports, and look out for the walkthrough on how to do that as a separate video. Okay, so now that we've accessed the API key, we're up to opening up the dashboard. And so click on this link here, and it's going to open up the toolkit based at the checklist screen, just to verify that the steps have been done correctly. But because of the first time that we've opened it, it's going to ask you to authorize the connection with that API key. So hit authorize. It's going to ask you to let's drag this into screen. It's going to ask you to connect with your particular Google account. Okay, and submit. Okay, we can see now that it's starting to connect to the Elvanto account and starting to bring information across. And as it does that, we're hoping to see each step light up as a green tick, essentially, to say that step has been done correctly. Okay, so I've got two membership categories here. I'm just going to slide this across. That's the navigation menu bar. So I've got two member categories, both core and crowd. That's what we wanted. I have one small group category, correct, and I've got the right number of that. Those numbers look right to me. The service attendance report has been pulled through, and these make sense to me. And also the report for group attendance has been pulled through. Now, a couple of things if you're not seeing what I'm seeing here. If one of these is not green and it will be gray, probably might even have some spanners across here to show that information has not been pulled through or there's some error. Then go back to your setup instructions. Let's say it was 2 in the setup group categories. If we go back to, sorry, my mistake, wrong button there. If we went back to here, we can drop down here and go back to 2 and just make sure that we did understand that step correctly. And then we hope that it would be fine. It might actually not refresh as green. We've got a whole bunch of caching happening throughout the dashboard that speeds up certain processes, and that might actually mean that it won't refresh to be correct. But in small groups, for instance, I could go across the small groups dashboard and see, yes, actually that is coming through correctly. And if, for instance, there was a problem with one of these bottom two ones, it could be that it's pulling through your actual report URL, but maybe these have spanned out. And that could be because you have not set that, that comprehensive report to be shared as a public link or anyone with the link. And so go back and change that. And that's a simple case. If you can click on this button here, it would load up your Elvanto account, and it would load up your Elvanto account to that actual comprehensive report, and you can change the share settings there. If there are other errors, you can go back and verify the steps. And if you're really still struggling, reach out to support or use the Growing Healthier Churches Facebook group. But once you've done all of that, you can go up to the top dashboard here and you can start to pull through real-time metrics. And every time that you open the dashboard from this point onwards, it will give you real-time metrics. And we hope this blesses your church. Thanks for signing up. There we go, real-time metrics for your church. Thanks very much.